So you have a unit test, a mock, or even an official exam coming up, but you just can't muster up the motivation to study. Don't worry though, here's exactly how I'm always motivated to study, even when I don't feel like it. Firstly, we need to understand that this problem is caused by a lack of motivation, and that lack of motivation can be manipulated through psychology. The choice of getting up to study or just laying down in bed scrolling through TikTok is a decision made in the brain. That decision is influenced through psychological factors. If we can tweak these factors, if we can tweak how we approach studying, we can get to a point where we never have to make that decision again. It will just be secondhand nature. You'll just get up and study. To achieve this, we first need to understand positive and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is simply just rewarding yourself when you do something good. A dog is given a treat when it listens to its owner. An Olympic athlete is given a gold medal and a lot of money when they win their competition. And so positive reinforcement is all around us. A lot of the time though, just the reward of getting high grades is not enough of a motivator for us to study. Sometimes we need more. And so that's where positive reinforcement comes in. It can manifest in many different forms. Some of the ways I use positive reinforcement to keep me motivated to study is that, for example, in the morning, I could delete Instagram, then I'll only re-download it when I'm completely done with all of the studying that I need to do. All of a sudden, I'm not only studying just to get good grades, I'm also studying so that I can check my DMs later on and check what my friends are up to. You could also tell yourself that you won't have breakfast until you get your morning studying session done. The idea is to stack as many motivators as you can on top of each other so that when the choice of should we study or should we not comes up, it's just secondhand nature. It's you have to study because you want to go on Instagram or you want to have breakfast. Now that's positive reinforcement. But let me tell you about something which is even more powerful, which is negative reinforcement. It's basically just punishing yourself for not doing something. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be something violent and extreme like lashing yourself. It could just be donating some money or doing 100 push-ups before you go to bed if for that day you didn't do enough work. A lot of people might think that that's toxic, but in reality, it's healthy and it's a very strong motivator. In fact, it's all around us. Our body makes us feel tired and hungry when we don't eat to motivate us to get that nutrition in. And why do you think we use prisons since pretty much the dawn of modern human civilization instead of just rewarding people when they act good? It's because humans are risk averse, which means that they would rather not lose something versus gaining something. And if you go to prison, you lose your reputation, your time, and also a lot of money. And so that's why a lot of people, or depending on where you live, try not to break the law. In that same way, we can use negative reinforcement to force us to study. Like I said before, you can donate some money or do push-ups, but you also know yourself best. You know what you value the most, and so make it based on that. Now that we've nailed down positive and negative reinforcement, we can move on to another psychological aspect, which is where you actually study. Now, this is taken from the legendary video, Study Less, Study Smart, which is a must-watch for every student. But I know that it's a very long video, and a lot of you don't have the time, so I made a summary for you guys to watch right here. To keep it short, if you look at most areas people might study in, they have primary functions other than studying. For example, a bedroom's primary function is to sleep, a dining table's primary function is to eat, and a living room's primary function is to watch TV or socialize. So the idea is when you try to study in these areas, you've already trained your brain into thinking that these areas have a purpose other than studying. And so when you go there to study, you might get distracted and start thinking about that primary function. You might feel sleepy when you study on your bed or hungry when you study on your dining table. That's why one of the best ways of keeping yourself engaged while studying is to dedicate an area just for studying. That could be in your home or in school or in a library. So every time you go there, you only think about studying. Now those were the psychological aspects, but maybe it's just a lack of energy. I've had that feeling before. When you know you want to study, so you open up a textbook or a YouTube video, but you just can't focus. You feel sleepy and tired and your bed is just calling you to lay down on it. If that is the case, then it's most likely just a lack of energy. And that could be caused by a bunch of things, but primarily it's two things. The first one and the most important one, of course, is your sleep. If you're always tired, then a cup of coffee won't help. You need to get your sleep right. Biologically, it doesn't make sense for us to always be tired, so we're probably doing something wrong. I also made a video explaining exactly how to optimize your sleep for the top grades, which you could watch right here. But to keep it short, try to sleep and wake up at similar times every day, even on the weekends. Also avoid caffeine and optimize your sleep cycles, which are more important to your sleep quality than how long you sleep for. Now those 3 points are just oversimplifications, and so I'd really recommend watching that video. But maybe it's not your sleep, maybe it's the time of day you choose to study. Even if your sleep is perfect, there's still going to be times throughout the day when you just feel tired. And that is natural, that's your body's way of telling you that you should probably get some rest. But the key is to avoid studying in these times. Now these times are different for everyone, but as a general rule, I try not to study at all after 8 p.m. because at that point, that's when my studying is so inefficient that it feels like a 1 hour studying session only gets me 30 minutes of studying in. Instead, I'll choose to sleep early and then wake up early and catch that wave of early morning energy to study in. And that optimizes my brain energy levels and gives me an effective studying session. Another time when you might experience tiredness throughout the day is that early afternoon time, because that's historically when people used to nap. That afternoon nap in Arab culture is called a qaylula, And also you might have heard it being called the siesta in Latin cultures. The idea is that it's natural for us to be tired in that time. Now, of course, you shouldn't study at this time because, again, you're tired, and so your studying session will be inefficient. But to combat this wave of tiredness, there's two things that I usually do. The first is to take a power nap, no more than 25 minutes. If you sleep for any longer, you risk going into deep sleep, and so next thing you know, you're waking up at 8 p.m. just confused. Instead, try your best not to make it longer than 25 minutes. But instead, if I don't want to nap, or maybe I just don't have the ability to, like I'm not home for example, then I could try something else that gives me a wave of energy. And no, it's not drinking a cup of coffee because that will just delay the tiredness. Could be something like exercise. Usually when I go to the gym at this time, I might go in tired and sleepy, but then by the time I come out, I have this natural rush of energy that I can then channel into studying. Now my next point is related to what we just talked about, and it's to set a routine in motion. When you build a habit of studying at the same time every single day, then the thought process goes from, should I study, to, oh yeah, it's just time to study. And it's not because you've built a superhuman level of discipline, it's just because that's what you've trained your brain to expect, and so it offers little resistance. If you've been going to the gym for the past 2 years, it's easier for you to make the decision to go to the gym on any given day than someone who has never been before. Because for you, it's just a habit. Your brain expects it. And so building a routine that's centered around when you study throughout the day and then sticking to that routine is one of the best ways to experience no resistance whatsoever when it's time to study. They say it takes 25 days to build a habit. Of course, it's different for everyone. But just try to study at the same exact time every single day. And you'll notice that as the days go on, your brain will resist the idea of studying less and less until it just becomes secondhand nature. I'd also recommend making that set time throughout the day as early as possible in the morning, because that's when your brain is at its peak energy and sharpness levels, and so the information will just flow into your brain like water. Now, if it's not related to your energy levels and it's not related to negative or positive reinforcement, then it may be that your revision is just plain boring. Don't get me wrong, your studying should not be fun. You shouldn't be saying, yay, I'm about to go study, because that's just delusion. That being said, your revision has to be engaging. I'm not really excited by the idea of spending 20 minutes solving a really long math question, but I know for sure that when I start, I'm not going to stop until I get an answer, and the time will fly. And why is that? It's because I'm engaged while doing the question, even though it's not fun. And so if you have a lot of passive revision, like reading and highlighting, you're not really engaging any parts of your brain, and that won't keep you motivated to study at all. And so how do you stay engaged? Well, again, it depends on the person, but as a general principle, just try to engage with the information. If you're going through a YouTube video or a textbook, don't just read and copy it. Instead, try to summarize it or change it up in your own words. Go a step further and make flashcards and do practice questions. These are things that engage your brain, which ultimately is what your brain wants. Your brain doesn't always want to have fun, but it always wants to be doing some sort of work. And that's why if you stare at a wall, your brain will just start randomly generating thoughts because it wants to constantly keep on working. That's how I always stay motivated to study, even when I don't want to.